This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended to cause or induce breach of an existing agency agreement.
Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Cory Wright.
And I'm Melisa Moretti.
And Melisa, on the show today, we have Shelby Kostyshen, who's joining us from our William Wright Commercial Kelowna office to talk about maybe the best secret in commercial real estate. It sounds like Vernon. Is Vernon the new Kelowna?
Well, after you asked that question and after that episode, I think that it might be.
Well, I think the listeners will be very surprised. You know, it's not an overly large market, but it's very close to Kelowna. It shares a lot of similar traits as Kelowna. And one thing that I didn't realize on the show, but Shelby had mentioned they get probably close to 1 million visitors every summer to the Vernon area.
Yeah.
You know, plus or minus a little bit. Obviously not going to hold them to that number, but yeah, I was very surprised. But I can tell you from being up in that area myself, when I go up there, is Vernon's really good. And you look at like the industrial projects getting built, and he talks about the absorption rate on the industrial projects and all of that stuff. So I think it's a great market personally. I think anything around there, he talks about all the different asset classes. So
great conversation.
I think the listeners will be very surprised and pleasantly surprised the opportunities that Vernon have. Before we hit the record button here, you were telling me you're going to Austin, Texas.
I am. Yeah.
Why?
I'm going down for a workshop, but I also just am really curious about Austin. You hear a lot about Austin these
You
days.
hear a lot about it.
Everyone's moving to Austin. There's opportunities there. There's development happening. You know, so many headquarters moving there. So I want to check it out.
Well, I think, this is what you do for the listeners here, right? Like obviously there's companies moving their headquarters. I think Tesla is moving there, stuff like that. So like you're going there as a roving reporter for the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast, and you're going to go report back.
Anything you want to know in particular?
What is the tax? What is the corporate tax rate down there? Well, I'm guessing it has to be very little if they're attracting all these great companies. But when you look at some of the best investment opportunities in America, you consistently see Austin, Houston, San Antonio. So you got to report back. You got to get lots of photos.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it.
And we're going to have you on as a guest after to report back all about the Austin, Texas commercial real estate market. All right. We'll leave it there. Without further ado, our interview with Shelby from our William Wright Commercial Kelowna office, talking all about Vernon.
All right, let's go.
This podcast is presented by Impact Commercial.
Impact Commercial, John, Alan, the team over there are fantastic. They've all been on the show.
They have,
Friends of the show.
Great guys.
Wealth of experience. They can help with all your commercial financing needs.
Whether it's owner-occupiers, land development funds, commercial investments, or multifamily, these guys got you covered.
And they recently obtained their CMHC correspondent lender status.
So for all your commercial lending needs, visit them at impactcommercial.ca.
That's impactcommercial.ca.
We're here today with Shelby Kostyshen, commercial leasing and sales specialist with William Wright Commercial's Kelowna office. Shelby, how are you doing today?
Hey, Cory, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing today?
Good, thanks. Good, thanks. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. We know you're very busy up there, but before we get into it, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and maybe how you ended up in commercial real estate?
Yeah, you bet. So actually, I'm from Edmonton, originally born and raised. Kind of out of university, I was actually going to go the accounting route. I did my major in accounting. Was set to start at Deloitte, kind of right out of university. Long story short, kind of my last, we'll call it 2 semesters of painfully going to classes and realizing this wasn't going to be for me. I kind of started looking to see what else might be out there. You know, through some conversations with some family friends, figured, the commercial real estate world seemed especially intriguing. So ended up getting a job at Colliers, working on their office sales and leasing team. And from there, worked with them for about 3 years, and had an opportunity to come out to Kelowna and join the William Wright commercial team. And long story short, I guess we were 2021, moved out this way with my then fiance, now wife, and haven't looked back. So I've been really invested in here in the market, and it's been pretty exciting time to be part of commercial real estate, especially in the Okanagan.
Well, we're very fortunate that you joined our Kelowna team there. You've done an outstanding job up there, so we appreciate it. One question before we get into it. How is the Edmonton office market? How is it being a broker in Edmonton in the office market?
I still keep pretty close tabs on it, and talk to a few of my colleagues back there pretty often. It's you hear maybe a few different sides of the story. Talking to people who are predominantly in office leasing, they tend to have a little bit of a different spin on it. But generally speaking, it's steady. At the end of the day, like the Edmonton office market really, doesn't really have its peaks and valleys like Calgary does, for instance, where depending on where oil and gas looks like, that market really seems to take pretty significant swings. The Edmonton market, with having so many, we'll call it government-related tendencies there, there's definitely its ups and downs. I think COVID obviously kind of throughout office markets throughout, North America and the world, I guess, for that matter, has seen a bit of a downturn. But generally speaking, it's steady. It's probably, definitely not maybe as busy as, industrial markets in BC or the, interior here. But guys are still plugging away and, doing deals. So it's always good to see.
So just curiosity for my own sake. So I'm a landlord in Edmonton and I own office space, and a tenant moves out and I call you up to come lease it out. How long, trying to manage my expectations, how long would you tell me the space is going to be vacant for before the new tenant shows up?
Well, I've worked on projects where there's been certain buildings and, the quality of the building and, the area of the city, you might be a year and a half plus in some situations. I know there are some projects where I started working right out of university, and I think some of those units are still available for at least 3 years later, call it. So,
wow. Well, I can definitely say that's not a Shelby issue, because how well and how hard you work in Kelowna, I know it was never a you problem. It was probably an office problem, is what it sounds like.
Exactly.
Well, Shelby, one reason why we wanted to have you on today is we were talking and you brought this up, and it was a great topic. And I'm like, we got to bring this to the listeners here. Kelowna's obviously is now on the map, both nationally, locally, internationally, as a tremendous real estate market. Vernon, a subset, you would probably say, of Kelowna, has also experienced a tremendous uptick in various asset classes, and you've been doing a lot of work in the Vernon market there. So we wanted to have you on today, and we got to ask the question, is Vernon the new Kelowna? Where it just seems like even office space is leasing in Vernon there. So before we, just very broad, high level, tell us, Vernon, proximity to Kelowna, all of that stuff. Then let's start digging into why it's seen the boom that it has.
For sure, Cory. Yeah, and so maybe for any listeners not as familiar with Vernon, it's about 45 minutes north of Kelowna. Most people who've been to the Okanagan are somewhat familiar with it. I guess some key landmarks in and around the area. Predator Ridge, which is a pretty popular resort and golf course, is about 15 minutes kind of out of the core of Vernon there. And, it's a beautiful area. Like, similar to Kelowna, a lot of people come out here for tourism, kind of fall in love with it. That's honestly one of the reasons I ended up calling Kelowna home, was kind of just through vacationing out this way in the Okanagan and fallen in love with, the summer times, and even the winters here are pretty great. So in terms of from a commercial real estate standpoint, we've definitely seen a bit of a boom in Vernon, similar to what we've seen in Kelowna, over the last, 3, 4, 5 years. I wouldn't say maybe it's quite to the same level that maybe Kelowna has seen in the run up, but we're certainly seeing some spillover and strong demand in that market throughout a lot of different asset classes, whether that's, Vernon or through, industrial, retail, or office, asset classes. I think, looking at the latest population numbers there, Vernon's about 45,000 people, give or take. And that was about a 10% increase over, I think, in the 2016 census.
Wow.
So, similar population, metrics in terms of growth as Kelowna. And what, just talking to, even just some friends in the community in here in the Okanagan, residentially, it's a little bit cheaper than Kelowna. So, if people, are able to work from home or make, their occupation work from, a little bit further out, Vernon's a great spot in terms of, your cost of living, just maybe being a little bit cheaper than what we see in Kelowna.
Well, one thing too is obviously when I'm up there with you guys, I'll venture out to the Vernon marketplace, and you go through places like Lake Country, and there's like Kalamaka Lake and all these amazing, beautiful houses that appear in this area there. I can definitely see why the appeal of heading outside of Kelowna as well into Lake Country and then eventually into Vernon, why it would be such an attractive spot for people from a livability standpoint. One question I have, and I was kind of thrown off by this when I heard this, is that obviously Vernon doesn't have a lot of office space, I'm guessing, but just how quickly that office space in Vernon tends to move. Is there a reason why that is, when obviously Kelowna has a very prominent office market, but things there haven't maybe moved as quickly in the past so recently as they did in the past? But why is Vernon seem to be like, bucking that trend on the office side of things?
Yeah, I think it really just comes down to supply and demand. Vernon really just doesn't have a ton of supply of office space. Just a kind of a handful of more traditional office, towers, if you want to call them that. A lot of what you see in Vernon are, smaller kind of, 2 to 3 story, walk up type office spaces. It really just comes down to, a bit of a lack of supply. So anything that does, becoming available typically does get scooped up, quite a bit quicker than what we're, really seeing in Kelowna right now, just with a bit more of an influx of new inventory in the Kelowna market specifically over the last, 12 to 18 months.
How would you compare the industrial markets for Kelowna and Vernon?
Yeah, fairly similar. Like you're definitely going to get a bit of a discount in Vernon. Speaking in terms of even the land, industrial land values, Kelowna has crept up to, nearly, $2.5, $3 million an acre over the last little bit here. Vernon, depending where you're looking, you can still find lands, $2 million an acre. If you go even a little bit east of Vernon, kind of near Lavington, only 15 minutes, east of town, you can pick up industrial land there for, under $1 million an acre.
Wow.
In terms of some of the newer industrial strata product that's, trying to compare, you're probably closer, Kelowna, you're looking around, $450 a square foot, give or take, some stuff kind of closer to Lake Country or, closer to $400 a square foot. Vernon, you're able to find, newer product sub 400 for sure.
Wow.
So, there's definitely some opportunities there for businesses to stretch their dollars, whether you're an owner, user, or potentially an investor to stretch those dollars a little bit further up in Vernon.
Well, one thing that's really surprised me is obviously we talk a lot about the Kelowna and the Class B and the industrial markets there, but even looking into that Vernon marketplace is looking, again, this is new tilt up strata. I was seeing asking rates like $17.50, $18.50, $19 for industrial. Are those numbers accurate? Is that what the market is for sort of newer product? And I guess in Class B might be 15, 16, which doesn't really feel like much of a difference than what I'd find in Kelowna.
Yeah, no, that's spot on, Cory. Like right now, we're seeing brand new kind of tilt up construction industrial go for between $17 and $19 a square foot in Vernon. Class B, you're closer to around 14, 15, depending on the building and location. But those are pretty similar rates across the board. What we're seeing in Kelowna right now, pretty much not much is over $20 per square foot for industrial in Kelowna. So we're almost on par, kind of that high teens, whether you're Kelowna or Vernon for newer industrial product.
How's the absorption of the new product there? Is it kind of like you get to standing product and then you mean the sales close or the delivery date passes and then a lot of that product leases or tends to sell, or is there still a fair amount of it moving pre-sale? The reason why I asked that is a lot of these tertiary markets, they almost sell after standing product is built versus off of floor plans.
Yeah, it definitely a little more of the latter. Markets like Vernon, even Kelowna for that matter.
Yeah.
In terms of absorption, timelines, like any, smaller market, sub 100,000, people, is a market like Vernon going to be able to absorb, 300,000-400,000 square feet of industrial space in, 18 months? No, probably not. But there hasn't been a lot of new construction in terms of industrial, really across the board, but specifically staying on the topic of industrial space in Vernon, we're starting to see there's about 3 or 4 newer projects though, have either just come online or in the shovels at the ground state right now. I do know there's a pretty large kind of 3-phase development on Silver Star Road, and so that's probably a good example to point to where high quality build, first phase, sold and leased out, quite quickly. They're on to phase 2 right now, which has been moving pretty quickly as well. And so, there's definitely demand for these types of kind of newer spaces, especially since there just hasn't been a ton of this new construction, in the past 5-10 years. How deep does that demand go? I guess is yet to be determined. But for right now, it seems like everything's being absorbed at a pretty good rate for a market, like I said, sub 100,000 people.
One thing that a lot of people are saying right now, and you guys have echoed this up there in the Kelowna area, is retail seems to be moving at a much faster pace now than it was over the past couple of years. How does that relate to the Vernon area? Is Vernon experiencing that same, sounds like good absorption, good numbers?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the strongest asset classes in Vernon, just based on the calls and inquiries I'm getting, different groups looking for space and just lack of supply for, that kind of sub 1,500 square foot, retail unit seems to be in such high demand. I know even just look at some of the larger developments like, Smart Centers, for example, barely ever has any vacancy with their shopping center and kind of towards the north end there. And so, it's definitely been probably, arguably the strongest performing asset class in Vernon.
Well, one thing when I was up there, I think we made this joke before, is I was really surprised to see a Cactus Club in Vernon. So I think you're on the map when there's a Cactus Club next to a Home Depot and a Walmart. Like you've made it. I think that's how most of us in Western Canada view towns, right? It's if you've got a Cactus Club, you're on the map, right? There you go. So Vernon now, long before our show came on, Vernon made the list before.
So I don't know a ton about Vernon or Penticton or the Okanagan in general. So if I was somebody that was looking to potentially invest up there and, I don't want to be in Kelowna because it's a little too expensive. First thing that comes to my mind is Penticton, because we've heard a lot about Penticton in the last few years. Why would you say somebody should invest in Vernon versus Penticton? Is it just the Cactus Club, or is it proximity to Kelowna? Or
well, you pay a premium for Cactus Club in your city, so
right.
Yeah, so you're paying for that up there.
That's what it is.
Shelby, what's the difference between the two? Because both of them say they have a lot of interest right now.
Exactly. Yeah. No. And they're as many similarities as they do have, they are quite different towns. I do find that Penticton, it definitely has. Their tourism throughout the summer, is similar to Vernon, where you get I think they get over 1 million people a year in both those towns in tourism. Vernon, to me, in terms of logistics for industrial groups, seems to be a little bit better location wise for groups coming back and forth between Vancouver and heading out east to the prairies. Generally speaking, I think there's a little bit more runway and upside. One of the main items and we've run into this a few times this year, transportation corridor between Penticton and Kelowna, with mudslides, and there's been 2 issues we've run into, specifically this year and in past, whereas having the 4-lane highway connecting Vernon and Kelowna is definitely a smoother ride, and seems to be far less issues on that portion. So logistically too, it just seems to be a little bit better location in that sense.
Now, obviously, there's been multifamily in the interior has obviously been a very strong asset class for quite some time, primarily probably around the Kelowna marketplace with the population growth there. How has that asset class performed or performing in a market like Vernon? Is there a spillover effect from the success Kelowna's experienced?
Yeah, no, I definitely think in the multifamily, residential, just generally, even knowing a few people that have recently, decided to move, whether they were, renting in Kelowna and just figured, the cost just, seems to be getting exponentially more expensive, year after year. Some people are looking at Vernon as a, pretty attractive place to either buy, condo, single family, houses. And with that, talking to, more and more developers, multifamily developers who are, either already in the Okanagan, specifically Kelowna, they're definitely got their eyes and, tied up projects in Vernon over the last, 18, 24 months, because they're quite, bullish on, the population growth and the demand they're seeing there, which is, has some to do with the spillover from Kelowna.
Now, cap rate wise, because obviously right now cap rates feel like they've been inflated since obviously we had our probably our record lows in most markets during COVID there. What type of cap rates would I be seeing if I was saying an investor looking into a market like Vernon, let's say multifamily versus say like a retail strip center?
So like in terms of, multifamily, we're still seeing, items trade around that five cap, retail,
Yeah.
you're right around the same, industrial, you're probably, 5.5. I do think things might, move up a little bit here. We'll see kind of what ends up happening with interest rates. I know that's been a hot topic of discussion on your guys' podcast as of recently, but you're kind of in and around that 5.5, kind of across the board for the most part.
And multifamily, where do you see those numbers trending right now for say Vernon, the Vernon area?
In terms of cap rates, Cory?
Yeah, sorry, cap rates, yeah.
Yeah, you're probably in and around, 5, 4.5, probably a little bit lower, like 4.5, or somewhere in there.
Wow,
right
good.
now.
Development wise, obviously there's been a ton of activity on the development front there in the Kelowna area. What type of development activity is Vernon seeing with regards to say new construction stratas and stuff like that?
So yeah, like one of them actually West Group out of Langley, they've got a pretty significant industrial strata development that they've coined the Salt Center. So I believe they've got shovels in the ground. I believe January they will be. So they're probably about 12 to 18 months after that. That's going to be a multi-phase industrial strata development for sale, and I believe for lease as well. There's another project. I believe they're going to have shovels in the ground just a little bit north of that on Anderson Way. A local developer. It's the similar situation. Kind of more of their design's a little bit more of that flex industrial, like kind of cater to some retail and industrial type uses. So that'll be coming on board here in the next 18 months. That one project on Silver Star Road I mentioned previously, they're right now leasing out their second phase. It's a 3-phase project. And another group, the Vault, who they've got a few different projects all across Western Canada. They've got one in Kelowna. I believe they got a couple actually in Calgary. This is their first project in Vernon. So they do kind of premium self-storage facilities, but they've also got what they're calling the Commerce, which is going to be a multi-phase light industrial development. And this one also is pretty similar location, kind of on the north side of Vernon. So all of these, I think, all of these projects combined will be about 400,000 to 500,000 square feet of industrial space over the coming years. So obviously, a lot of different developers feel quite bullish on Vernon, and I think there's probably good reason for it.
So Shelby, money is not an issue for you, but you got to invest in Vernon and in a particular asset class. Where's Shelby's money going, and why? And why? Back it up after.
That's a good question. I'd say. Yeah, money's no object. I'm probably putting it in, class like you've chatted about before, quite class B industrial with, anything with value add potential. I think, with that being said, with all the new development, there's obviously quite a bit of new product coming on board. I still think that kind of, if you can find a building where you can achieve, the rental rates a little bit below, the high teens, find a building where the expectation is only, $13, $14, $15 a square foot. You can get a really nice tenant mix in there, kind of put together a bit of a value add program. That's probably where I'm putting money, and you're going to probably see the best, return.
Well, clearly Shelby listens to the podcast because that's the same thing we preach all the time. So I think the strategy is echoed. I think it works. And like I said, I think a market like Vernon there has had what seems to be a tremendous uptick, and it looks like it's going to continue on. And I think obviously with the housing prices that Kelowna has achieved, it's going to make the livability of a community like Vernon that much more attractive moving forward. Shelby, just from an overall market standpoint, obviously we're sitting here in the high interest rate world that we are. Feels like sometimes the epicenter of real estate in BC is Kelowna right now. How are you guys seeing just the overall market over, say, the past 6 months maybe just give us a high level overview of like what asset classes are moving and why.
Yeah. No, like I'm sure you've heard kind of across the board. It's been, a bit of an interesting time. It seems like there's a lot of money on the sidelines, but obviously quite a bit of uncertainty in the marketplace right now. And, with that does come a little bit, of, some slower times. The investment market's definitely got, quiet. New construction's been, a lot of people waiting on the sidelines. There's been some good news stories in terms of, the GST rebate and, some other items like that have, kind of helped spur maybe a little bit more confidence. But I think we're still, we're in some interesting times right now. In terms of leasing, though, it's still been fairly steady. Definitely, retail has been quite strong. We're still seeing tons of demand, whether that's Kelowna or anywhere in the Okanagan. Industrial, we definitely it had quite the run there for the last call it couple of years. It's I would probably say it's plateaued a little bit here. And then in terms of office, it's been a fairly steady. There's still, I think, just in terms of, a lot of businesses still trying to figure out their, work from home type policies. And, I would suggest there's been a lot more groups kind of pivoting, trying to find the right type of office, and in some cases that's been downsizing, but I still feel like there's still a strong demand for, an office space. It's just that, it's changed with that. What that's looked like over the last, couple of years here, obviously.
Well, Shelby, we definitely appreciate your time providing the insight there on the Vernon marketplace, which I think will be an eyes wide open type podcast here where people are going to be listening to it and they may not have thought Vernon has the potential or they may not have thought it has the run up that it's currently experiencing now. But I know from a company standpoint, we're very bullish on the BC interior and Vernon wraps itself right up in that marketplace. But before we let you go, Shelby, we got a 6-pack of lighthearted questions we got to ask everybody there, but we're going to give you a bonus 7th question today at the very, very end that we can't tell you about yet. So, but do you have a few more minutes for us?
Absolutely.
The 6-pack is powered by our good friends over at Red Point Law.
Red Point Law, Cory, Tim, Falco, Scott, and the team. These are great people with a wealth of experience when it comes to commercial closings and private lending. And I just want to say, Cory, not to cut you off, they have a perfect 5-star review on Google.
So for all your commercial legal needs, visit them at redpointlaw.ca with offices in Vancouver and now open in downtown Kelowna. First question up, favorite bar or restaurant?
That's a good question. I would probably say here in Kelowna, one of my favorite spots to check out is B&A.
B&A. Great choice.
I've never
choice.
been, but we've heard that before.
Yeah, someone else from up there. I think maybe did Jeff Hancock maybe from our Kelowna office mention that? It's a great facility. It's awesome. It's got bowling lanes and everything.
Oh, wow.
It's really good food. Definitely worth the drive to Kelowna.
Really?
Yeah, if you're ever in town, it's definitely worth a stop.
Yeah, well, Melissa's coming up this weekend to come check it out, she said. So
Just to go bowling.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right. Next question. You found yourself on death row. What is your last meal?
I think I have to go steak and sushi.
Oh, steak and sushi. That's the best of both worlds.
Oh.
Exactly. I can't pick between the two, so I'll go with both.
Steak and sushi. That's the first time we've had the combo meal. We've had the buffet option before.
We've had that before.
I don't think we've had steak and sushi together, have we?
I think so.
Maybe. Yeah, I got to pay more attention.
I feel like that's an Earl's special or something.
Yeah, I definitely see that.
It reminds me of Earl's. But it's good.
That's great.
I spent a good part of 5-6 years through my university days at Earl's, so maybe that's
there you go. There you go. Supporting the old employer. So that's Next question up, Shelby. Favorite band or musician?
That's a good one. I'd probably say right now, just because they seem to come up on the playlist a lot, Morgan Wallen.
Oh,
Morgan Wallen.
I had a feeling.
I'm an Alberta guy. I do like my country music.
Oh, I knew you're from Alberta there. I had a very small glimmer of hope you're going to say Nickelback, but Morgan Wallen's a close second. Close second is Morgan Wallen. Everyone.
You do know, Cory, I did hear that Nickelback is going to be playing at the Heritage Classic with the Oilers in the Flames this year. So did you get your tickets already or what?
I haven't yet, but this is the first I've heard of it. I know what I'm doing after this. I'm going to go to Edmonton at minus 30 degrees now to go see Nickelback, apparently.
There you go. Maybe I'll join you.
Yeah, there you go. I'll stop in at your parents' place for dinner.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, next question. You are drunk at a bar and somebody hands you a microphone. What song are you singing?
This is a good one. I'd probably go with Life is a Highway, Rascal Flatts.
Oh.
Yeah.
would be,
That's a good one.
Classic.
That's
Yeah.
another classic.
I like it.
Another
I somehow
classic.
got caught singing that one a couple of days before my wedding with a few people pushing me up on stage. So
Oh, well, there you go.
let's go with that one.
There you go. Next question up, a book recommendation for all of our listeners, and doesn't necessarily have to be real estate related.
Non-real estate related. You know what? This summer there's a book by George St. Pierre, who is a MMA fighter. I think the book was called The Way of the Fight. And so it came out probably about 10 years ago, but I opened it back up again this summer. And really fascinating. I'm not that big into MMA, but I guess GSP is what he kind of goes by. Is kind of probably known, or arguably kind of known, as one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world at his time. And his, doesn't get too much into fighting aspect, but just more of his approach and discipline, and how he kind of went about his day and his business was it's kind of fascinating. Quite a few interesting things that you can take away from a dedicated athlete like that.
Awesome. All right, next question. Something you've purchased for under $1,500 that has had a positive impact on your life.
Oh, I would probably say, maybe because I'm using them right now, my AirPods. I use them every day, whether I'm on phone calls or taking the dog for a walk. But I never figured I'd use them as much as I do, and they, great to have them.
Yeah, I will second that. I got AirPods one time, and I thought I would never use them, and now if I leave home without them, I drive back home.
They're literally sitting right next to your hand.
Yeah, they're in my hand, in my pocket all the time. Life changers. So Shelby, I told you at the start of here, we have a bonus 7th question here. I know you are from Edmonton there, and I'm assuming an Edmonton Oilers fan, you probably caught the Canucks game the other day where Canucks won 8-1. And in our city over here, because we are bandwagon jumpers, we are currently planning the Stanley Cup parade route at the city of Vancouver after our first game of the year. Bonus question is Edmonton Oilers going to win the Stanley Cup this year?
Yeah, my money's on the Oilers. I think this is the year Connor and Leon get it done.
This is the year. This is the year.
This is the year.
That's right. So you heard it here first.
Very happy for the Vancouver fans to have that win the other night. They need a little glimmer of hope once in a while, right?
I'm not gonna lie. I took my oldest son to the game, and he has a Connor McDavid fan, so he has Connor McDavid jersey on and all that stuff. And the Edmonton Oilers just didn't even show up. And I haven't played recreational hockey for 25 years. And if I brought my skates to Rogers Arena, I probably had a fighting chance to be on the third line that night. They just weren't there, and we had the greatest game in Canucks history probably, and we won 8-1. But we could be 1-7 after 8 games for all we know. So let's just not get too excited just yet. But I'm going to second the Oilers. I picked the Oilers earlier to win the Stanley Cup this year too. I'd like to see them. I'd like to see Connor McDavid win.
That's good to hear. It's I got my money on the Oilers this year, and I'm hoping. But I've been saying that for decades now.
Well, but they got the team, like the Hart Trophy pretty much has been passed back and forth, it feels like, between two guys for the better part of 5 or 6 years. So, it just goes to show you, in a cap era, you have to have a goalie, and that's probably been their weak point. They just haven't really had a number one goalie per se that would equal the talent they have up front. So let's get a hot goalie in the playoffs, and I think they'd be a very tough team to beat.
No, exactly. I'm hoping. Yeah, fingers crossed this year.
So Shelby, for all of our listeners there, if they want to get a hold of you, talk more about Vernon, Kelowna, commercial real estate, Edmonton Oilers, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
Best way to get a hold of me is probably checking me up, Shelby Kostyshen. It's Kostyshen on the William Wright Commercial website, or reaching me at shelby.kostyshen@williamwright.ca.
Well, Shelby, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it as always. That was great insight, and I'm sure our listeners will be very thankful. I'm sure they're going to reach out to you.
Thanks, Shelby.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And great chatting with you guys. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, Shelby. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
There you have it, folks. Our interview with Shelby Kostyshen from our Kelowna office, talking all about Vernon. Again, I didn't realize things like the multifamily sector and all that stuff was as busy up there as it is. I know Kelowna is.
Yeah.
But he talks about that and the absorption too of some of the newer products coming on the line there, especially in the industrial side of things. A lot of these secondary and tertiary markets, like, it's got to get like fully built before they lease or they really sell. And just talking about some new products that are getting leased out already, and now some projects are into phase 2 of leasing, it sounds like. Now, granted, I don't know if phase 1 is delivered yet, but still the fact that there's multiple phases happening, that's a great sign for that asset class and that marketplace.
I think people are going to be watching very closely after that episode.
Well, I think one thing too, when you look at some of these smaller markets, and maybe we'll say Kamloops as an example, now obviously Kamloops is bigger than Vernon, but Vernon's a feeder off into Greater Kelowna. But a lot of these smaller markets haven't gone through the strata boom, whether it be office, retail, or even industrial, that we've had down here. So if you go into Kamloops, for example, there's some very highly desirable industrial areas sort of right outside of the downtown core where you can't find a 1,500 square foot strata unit. They don't exist, really. Now, again, obviously I'm over-exaggerating that, but they're very hard to come by because versus down here, you go into areas and there'll be strata tilt up next to strata tilt up next to strata tilt up. Up there, they don't have that because when a lot of these buildings were built way back when, there probably wasn't demand for the product. So when you can find this, or you can potentially find it at a new development, which it sounds like Vernon's experiencing right now, they can be really, really good investments. You can get a great cap rate on where they are today. But then again, you're probably going to have a very low vacancy rate just based on demand within that smaller city. But then also those lease rates probably will creep up as demand does. Because in a lot of these smaller communities, there's also not as much land to build on. So as demand rises and the product gets built out, land becomes scarce. That's when you sometimes see these lease rates that go up quite a bit in value, which creates obviously a great NOI for investors. I'm bullish on Vernon.
Slam dunk.
I'm bullish on Vernon.
So I just wanted to bring up on Friday.
Yes.
Cory didn't make it, but Jaden ran 100 miles.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
That's right.
To raise money for BC Children's Hospital. We met him at BC Children's Hospital after his appointment. He had a parking lot party.
Unbelievable.
We went and cheered him on. And Matt actually
ran. Yeah, Matt was posting in a group text like photos
of him running.
And at one point in time, I don't know the whole context of this, so it could be taken out of context, where I think they got to a bridge. And from a safety standpoint, they took the ambulance over the bridge.
Now, there was an incident on the bridge.
Now, when I saw Matt in the ambulance, I assumed Matt was down. I thought we lost him.
Oh no,
but it was a safety. It was a safety concern over the bridge in the ambulance. Yeah. Matt hadn't passed out in the bush and ended up. I thought Matt was down. I thought, okay, Jaden lost Matt. No, Matt's in the ambulance.
He managed to do 30 kilometers.
That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Good for him.
Jaden did 160, but hey, Matt did 30, and that was amazing.
That's pretty good. What's that, like 1/5 of the run?
That is amazing. Yeah, and
good on Matt.
Unfortunately, wasn't able to make it, but I ran around the seawall. I did a very nice, clean 5K.
How long does it take to do 5K around seawall?
I mean, I'm not a fast runner. I've got sort of like, tree trunks for legs, but it's about 32 minutes.
30
is my 5K.
That's 32 minutes is 5K?
For me.
Oh, that's incredible.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Not compared to Jaden and his accomplishments. That was an amazing feat.
Yes. And kudos to everybody who donated to it. I know we've been promoting it on this show and also on the Vancouver Real Estate Podcast. Yep. It's been highly promoted.
I think you can still donate.
Donate? Okay.
Link is still open. So hopefully by the time the episode comes out, you can still donate.
So for those who haven't yet donated to this amazing cause which benefits Children's Hospital, if you haven't yet donated, we'll put a link in the show notes, I'm sure. If not, it's on the Vancouver Real Estate Podcast website. Make sure you take the time to donate. As I said before, William Wright Commercial made a donation. Matt and Adam matched that donation. You took it upon yourself to one-up all of us and then donate even more. So kudos to you for that.
All right. So Cory, how can people get a hold of you?
They can reach out to me anytime they want through email at cory@williamwright.ca. Send me an email. Tell me what you like and what you don't like, and some show ideas would be great. We always love hearing from people. You can call our Vancouver office, 604-428-5255. Let us know what you're looking for. We'll put you in touch with the best broker throughout the province. Or you can visit our website, williamwright.ca, and sign up for the latest and greatest news. And for all those who want to sell condos and houses and anything else residential related, Melisa, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can call me 778-869-4477 or email me at melissa@vancouverrealestatepodcast.com.
Another great episode in the books. I do want to just quickly touch on, I believe it's next week. We have Frank O'Brien back. His annual episode he does with us, releasing the Western Investors 5 markets that they predict will be good markets for 2024.
Is Vernon going to be on there?
I don't know, but there should be a good push for Vernon. If it's not, we should have a good push. And then follow it up with that episode. In November, we're going to have Rod McKay back on to do the podcasts, 5 cities that we like for 2024.
All
so
right.
lots of predictions coming down the pipeline. Thanks for listening, guys.
All right. Bye.
Subscribe today.